Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 2 of ELT, and we are going to present our material in this video. Our material is poetry. So, what is poetry? Here's what a few popular dictionaries have to say. Webster's Dictionary. Metrical writing, writing that formulates a concentrated, imaginative awareness of experience in language chosen and arranged to create a specific emotional response through meaning, sound, and rhythm. Oxford Dictionary, literary work in which special intensity is given to the expression of feelings and ideas by the use of distinctive style and rhythm. Macmillan Dictionary, a piece of writing using beautiful or unusual language arranged in fixed lines that have a particular beat and often rhyme. And then, based on literary terms and criticism book, on Red Book that Mr. Afifi give for us, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Poetry is many things to many people. It is a release from the daily stress of life, a security blanket, a way to communicate, even a way to tell the tale of our life. Poetry can be the flight of a butterfly, the bark of a dog, the roar of an engine, or the flight of a baseball of a bat. Poetry can be a heartbeat of a loved one or a streak lightning across the sky. So, the only important from each dictionary fields is important to mentioning its definition of poetry is rhythm. It's good to know here.
Okay, I would like to continue the explanation from our friend about poetry, and I will explain about archaism, assonance, and ballad. What is archaism? Archaism is the use of writing that is today considered old-fashioned. Archaism refers to antiquated language that is still used thought usually just for specific purposes. Jadi archaism itu kata atau bahasa yang kuno dan lama atau kuno dan sekarang itu jarang digunakan, sama seperti dalam bahasa Indonesia. Jadi semakin kesini itu bahasa mulai ada pembaharuan, seperti for example, kalau dulu itu ada iye tapi sekarang itu yes, not, nothing, behold, sekarang itu jadi benefit. Next, assonance. What is assonance? Assonance is repetition of the same vowel sound into or more words in a line of poetry. For example, the early bird catch the worm. Ballad. The traditional ballad is a song that tells a story. The theme is often tragic, such as a tale of personal misfortune, or it can recall a public event such as a battle. Ballad itu sajak naratif yang menceritakan suatu kisah yang bersifat sentimental atau romantis, bisa dinyanyikan dengan tempo pelan ataupun sedang gitu. After this video I will give you PowerPoint about our explanation.
The next method, we talk about matter, mock heroic, first episode, and modern matter. So do you know what is matter before? Matter is the basic rhythmic structure of a verse or lines in a verse. In the other side, matter means the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllable on line of poetry. Inside of matter, there is poetic foot. So poetic foot is repeated sequence of rhythm comprised of two or more stressed and unstressed syllables. And then motic matter is compressed poetic fit. Okay, the next is 5-man pattern to predict matter. The first is iambic pattern, trochaic pattern, anapestic pattern, teclitic pattern, and spondaic pattern. I will give you some explanation. So do you know iambic pattern, everybody? Iambic pattern is one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable. So iambic pattern, that the end of the word is stressed syllable. For example, repose. Re is unstressed syllable, and then pose is stressed syllable. And then trochaic pattern is one stressed syllable followed by one unstressed syllable. This is located in one stressed syllable. For example, garland, garland. So gar, that's stressed syllable. And then next is anapestic pattern. Anapestic pattern is two unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable. For example, on the road, on the road. So the stressed one is road, on the, that's unstressed. Okay, the next is teclitic pattern. Teclitic pattern is one stressed syllable followed by two unstressed syllable. So the stressed syllable is the first. For example, happiness, happiness. So the stressed syllable is in hap. And then the next, spondaic pattern. Spondaic pattern is all syllables have equal stress. For example, heartbreak, heartbreak. Out, out. Yes. Mock heroic. Mock heroic is a long poem. As usual, we call it mock epic. So do you know, everybody, what is epic? Epic is the most ambitious form of poetry. And then funny poem written in mock heroic style. A mock epic poem imitates the elevator form and ceremony style of epic poetry, but applies it to some subject matter. There are three major mock heroic poems in English. Two by Pope's The Rap of the Lock in 1714, and then one by Giants MacFlecknoe in 1682. Pope's The Rap of the Lock concerns the thief of Lady Cole by presenting this action and consequence in courteous terms. And you know, everybody, Pope also ridicules the foolishness of people in society. And Giants MacFlecknoe present a notoriously bad poet, Flecknoe, choosing his successor, and shut well. First episode. First episode kinds of verse that dealing with moral and philosophical theme. It also means a poem or other literary work in the form of letter or series of letter. So there are two types of first episode: Heresis episode and Aphid episode. Heresis episode. The tradition of Heresis episode deals with moral and philosophical theme, and an Aphid episode, the traditional based on Aphid episode include romanticism and other sentimental subject. And then modern poetry. Modern poetry is generally seen as having started at the beginning of the 20th century and extend into the 21st century. Among its major practitioners are Robert Frost, Wallace Stevens, and Annie Carson. So do you know, everybody, some writers believe poetry has its origin in song. Most of the characteristics that distinguish it from other forms of utterance rhyme, compression, intensity of feeling, the use of reference appear from effort to fit words with musical form.
Dream poetry or dream allegory is a poem that tells of a dream, and it is known as a dream vision too. This is especially popular in the Middle Ages, and then well-known example of a dream allegory include the first part of Roman de la Rose in 13th century, and then Chaucer's work of poetry. The title is Book of the Duchess, and then Pearl, and so on. And then the dream allegory generally have certain important elements in common. And then for the first, dream vision are written in the first person.
The narrator becomes the dreamer and relates the story as his own dream experience. And then the second, the dream itself depicts a liminal experience, one in which the dreamer crosses a border into a supernatural or mystical realm that reflects in some way on the world he has left and must return to. And then the third, the dream contains an important lesson or in some way instructive for the dreamer. Next to the elegy. Elegy is a form literature that can be defined as a poem in the form of elegiac couplets written in honor of someone deceased. And this is a poem written on the death of a friend of the poet. The purpose is to praise the friend, and by the end of the poem, however, we can expect that the poet will have come to terms with his grief. Example of this elegy, it is Milton's work or Milton's poem that the title is Lycidas, which can image trait in the poem. Initially, the range of imagery can confuse the reader, but it is vital to see that the poet must explore poetic language, especially imaginary, to discover there is any point in writing poetry. And then the next, there is Tennyson's poem, titled In Memoriam, in 1850. And all describes the dilemma is same. A friend has died and life seems futile. So what is the function of elegy? Elegy is one of the richest literary forms because it has the capacity to express emotion that deeply influence people. Most of the poets who wrote elegies were evidently awed by the frailty of human beings and how the world completely forgets about the deceased at some point. However, the function of elegy is not as limited as it is thought. Whenever we take a look at elegy examples, what comes to mind are feelings like sorrow, grief, and lamentation. So the next is epic. The word epic is derived from the ancient Greek adjective epikos, which means a poetic story. In literature, an epic is a long narrative poem, which is usually related to heroic deeds of a person of an unusual courage and unparalleled bravery. In order to depict this bravery and courage, the epic used grandiose style. So the examples of epic from literature, we can see for the first is the epic of Gilgamesh. Perhaps the epic of Gilgamesh is the first example of an epic. It tells the story of the life of an Assyrian king, Gilgamesh. Like all other epics, the narrative of this epic revolves around the themes related to gods, human beings, mortality, legacy, and seduction. The second example is the Iliad. Iliad is another example of an epic. It was written by the popular Greek poet Homer. It relates the story of the Trojan Wars, involving themes of courage, boldness, love for one's country, and nostalgia of family. We continue to the Romance poetry. The word romance also refers to romantic love. As far as literature is concerned, the term has an entirely different concept. It means romantic stories with chivalrous feats of heroes and knights. Romance describes chivalry and courtly love, comprising stories and legends of duty, courage, boldness, battles, and rescues of damsels in distress. Romance have been written since classical English period, and romance were popular in the Middle Ages. An example of romance in poetry is a poem of an unknown author. The title is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This is created in 14th century. So this 14th century romance, whose writer is still unknown, revolves around the bravery of Sir Gawain, a knight of King Arthur, who accepts the challenge from the Green Knight. Romantic poetry. A major change in thinking occurred in the late 18th century. A new feeling came into existence, a sense that man had become spirit from nature. The theme of romantic poetry often criticizes the past, stresses upon sensibility, isolation of the writer, and pays homage to nature. Preceded by Enlightenment, Romanticism or romantic poetry brought not only fresh poetry but also Greek novels in English literature. This romantic movement includes famous writers such as William Wordsworth, Coleridge, Keats, Lord Byron, Shelley, Chatterton, and Howard Thorne. The one example of romantic poetry is authorized by John Keats, that the title is To Autumn. This is one of the best romantic poems of its time. Keats composed this phenomenal romantic poem during one of his evenings in Winchester. It describes the autumn and its features through imagination, intuition, and idealism. Keats describes three stages of autumn as it progresses from the early autumn to middle autumn and the onset of winter, and compares it to the cycle of life in general.
My name is Fariski Putri Ayu, and now I would like to explain about heroic couplet, imagery, images, and stanza. But before, I would like to present about heroic couplet first. Yeah, what is a heroic couplet? If we hear a word heroic, we think about the hero. Yeah, but heroic couplet here is a traditional form of English poetry that commonly used in epic and narrative poetry. Yeah, and heroic couplet consisting of iambic pentameter, and the first use of heroic couplet is Shakespeare. And the second is imagery. Imagery. When we write a poem, we must know about what the writer means, and we must know about what the terms of that poem, and also we can give response to the poem. And imagery means the use figurative language to represent object, action, and idea from the writers. And also imagery need high imagination from us if we want to represent an object, ideas from the writers. We must have a high imagination. Yeah, and the next is images. Images means a poetry, a type of poetry that describe an image of poetry in a simple language. We can call it images in modern poetry. Yeah, because images movement in modern poetry focus and describe an image of poetry as opposite of traditional poetry. If in traditional poetry describe an image of poetry with difficult word, difficult language, but in modern poetry describe an image with simple language. What is stanza? Stanza is 16 line that divide into four equal units of 4 lines. But 4 lines, or we can also call it that quatrains, are the commonly used. And also, if we want to know what is stanza, we must memorize the part of the poem or the poetry, so we can find the stanza easily.
Well, guys, for the next explanation is blank verse. Blank verse putri is unrhymed putri. It means that this putri lacks of lacks of rhyme. It is less formal than a common putri that has rhymes. And blank verse uses iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter is a 10-syllable line with 5 stresses or emphases. By using iambic pentameter, we can know the stress and unstressed syllables in each line in a poetry. And also, this blank verse poetry is suitable to tell about complicated story or to explore an experience in comprehensive way. And Shakespeare also used this kind of poetry, and the famous example from blank verse is Milton's poem under the title Paradise Lost. As I explained before, that blank verse is suitable to tell about complicated experience. So Milton's here also tells about his complicated problem to justify God's to man. Yeah, and also one thing that we should realize that when we read blank verse poetry, we should follow the sense from verse to verse. It is different with other poem that we read it in, we linger longer over each line. Yeah, that's the advantage or the positive advantage from blank verse. For the next is Courtly Love Poetry. We can guess from the name, it tells about love. Yeah, in fact, Courtly Love Poetry tells are concerned with an idealized view of love. Here, the poet tries to describe or tells the try to describe and tell the readers about the ideal of love, and the intention of this poem is to show the real relationships in complicated emotion about love. Next is dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue is a poem in which an imaginary speaker addresses an audience. The poem usually takes place at a critical moment in the speaker's life. So, as I understand here, the poet tries to deliver his feeling, and by picking a moment in the speaker's life to a person. So the poet tries to focus just a person. And here, monologues are common in place in longer poems, and the example of dramatic monologue is Robert Browning. The title is My Last Duchess. And also, all dramatic monologues present one person's response to life. So it seems like it tells about the speaker's response. Yeah, it describes about the opinion of the speakers about life, personally. Yeah, like that. Thank you. Well, the next is conceit. Conceit is a metaphor that compares two unlike things, and here the poet tries to make a link between two different things. Let me try to give an example here. In our ELT book, page 23, it is Don's poem. Let me try to read it, guys. If they be two, they are two so. A stiff twin compasses are two. Tie soul, the fixed foot makes no show to move but off if the other do. As I understand, the poet here tries to make a link between two different things. Those are legs, leg, and compass. We can see from the word move and compass, twin compasses. Besides, conceit is also called metaphysical poetry. Metaphysical poetry also represents an intellectual attempt to confront an experience by giving an argument, another argument. Well, the next is godly love poetry. We can guess from the name, it tells about love. Yeah, in fact, godly love poetry tells are concerned with an idealized view of love. Here, the poet tries to describe or try to describe and tell the readers about the ideal of love, and the intention of this poem is to show the real relationships in complicated emotion about love.
Here I am, Muhammad Rizkul Ramadan from class H. Want to explain to you about lyrical ballad, metaphysical, and symbol. The first is lyric. The term lyric originates from Greek word lyre, which is an instrument used by the Grecians to play when reading a poem. In poetry, lyric means expressing the reader's emotions, usually briefly and in stanzas or recognized forms. In song, lyric is a collection of verse and choruses, making up a complete song or a short and non-narrative poems. Lyric uses a single speaker who demonstrates specific moods and emotions. Through words, such mood express a range of emotions from extreme to nebulous about life, about love, about death, or about other experiences of life. The second is lyrical ballad. Lyrical ballad, actually, this is a book of poems that was created in 1798 by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It was the first major work of romantic literature and contained Will's Tintern Abbey and Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. In the second edition, in 1800, Will Wordsworth added a famous introduction saying that poetry should be drawn from ordinary life and written in plain language. The third is metaphysical. Metaphysical is a highly intellectualized, use rather strange imaginary, use frequent paradox and content extremely complicated. The word meta means after, while metaphysical means after the physical. Metaphysics deals with questions that cannot be explained by science. It questions the nature of reality in a philosophical way. It's about exploration and philosophy. This is not about science and math. The characteristics of metaphysical contain large doses of wit. In fact, although The poets were examining serious questions about existence of God or whether a human could possibly perceive the world. The poets were sure to ponder these questions with humor. It also sought to shock readers and make them up from their normal existence in order to question the questionable. The last is symbol. Symbol is a person, object, place, event, or action that suggests more than its literal meaning. In poetry, symbol can be categorized as conventional, something that is generally recognized to represent a certain idea. In addition, symbol can be categorized as contextual or literary, something that goes beyond a traditional public meaning, whereas conventional symbols are used in poetry to convey tone and meaning. Contextual or literary symbols reflect in the internal state of mind of the speaker as revealed through the image. As English poetry has developed over hundreds of years, certain symbolic meanings have attached themselves to such things as colors, places, time, and animals. A list of these common symbols and their meanings follows. The list does not exhaust the possible meanings and associations of a symbol or metaphor in any particular poem. You cannot merely plug these meanings into a poem and expect to understand the poem completely. Your own knowledge, associations, and experience are what will lead you to a deep and personal connection to any poem. That's all. Thank you very much.
The epic poetry. The definition of epic poetry is the word epic is derived from the ancient Greek adjective. It means that epikos, which means a poetry story. In literature, an epic is a long narrative poem, which is usually related to heroic deeds of a person of an unusual courage and unparalleled bravery. In order to despite this bravery and courage, the epic uses grandiose style. The hero is usually the representative of the value of the certain culture, race, nation, and religion, certain supramental forces. The function of epic is, as the epic poem is the earliest form of poetry. It is the earliest form of entertainment as well. Epic were written to commemorate the struggle and adventure of king and warriors. The main function of epic poetry was to elevate the status of the hero among the audience, to inspire them to be ready to perform heroic actions. Epic obtains most of its themes from the exploits performed by legendary characters and their illustration ancestors. The second is definition of sonnets. The word sonnet is derived from the Italian word. It is sonetto, which means little songs or small lyric. In poetry, a sonnet has 15 lines and is written in what's the mean? Iambic pentameter. Each line has 10 lines, has 10 syllables. It has a specific rhyme scheme, a folate or specific turn. Generally, notes are divided into different groups based on the rhyme scheme there follow. The function of sonnet. The sonnet has become popular among different poets because it has a great adaptability to different purpose and requirements. Rhythms are strictly followed. It could be a perfect poetry style for elaboration or expression of a single feeling or thought. With this short length in ambioic pentameter, in fact, it gives an ideal sting for a poet to explore strong emotion. Due to its short length, it is easy to manage for both to write and reader. The third topic is the definition of free verse. Free verse is a type of poetry that doesn't contain patterns of rhythm or meter. free verse is considered an open form of poetry, as opposed to poetry written in structure of form, and tends to follow natural speak patterns and rhythms. While some rhyme and rhythm may occur in free verse poems, the poet does not adhere to strict patterns. However, this not does imply that free verse has not guiding principles. Indeed, free verse generally contains poetic lines and poetic imagery that distinguish it from prose. Prose. The function of free verse is commonly used contemporary poetry. Some poets have taken these techniques as a freedom from rhythm and rhyme, because it changed people's mind. People minds, what's the name? The mind, it changed people's minds with mislead. Therefore, free verse is also called phrase labor. The best thing about free verse is that poets can imagine the forms of any sound through intonation instead of matters. Free verse give a greater freedom for choosing words and conveying the meaning to audience. The last topic is epithalamion. Epithalamion is an ode written by Edium Spencer as a gift to his bride, Elizabeth Biol. On their wedding day, the poem moved through the couple's wedding day, from rooms impatient hours before dawn to the late hours of night after the husband and wife has consummated their marriage. Spencer is very methodical in his depiction, or time as it thus waiting in anticipation or fear. Will be continued by my friends. Thank you so much.
Yes, we have done to explain all of our material. We hope our explanation can make you understand. So, that's all for this time for being us, and thank you so much for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.